Hello, everyone. This is Tanya Bork, and I am presenting The Truth About Cultural Fit, How to Recruit More Effectively While Maintaining a Company Culture. It's a lot of words there, as I know. Just to kind of give you an overview on me, for the last few years I was a corporate recruiter, and recently in March I've gone into private consulting. And most of my consulting work is with startups. While this presentation might seem like it's geared towards startups, we're going to be looking at all companies as a whole and taking a look at what company culture actually means and how do you translate that into hiring people and being effective with your outreach. So I'm going to go ahead to the first slide, and that's defining what your company culture is. So here are just several questions that you would ask yourself about your company or your organization of, what are your company's values? Who are your founders? What is your company's story? What makes you different than your competitors? What is your company work style? What is the vision for the future? And I'm going to go into all of these in more detail as we go over to the next slides. Feel free to ask any questions in the question bar, and I will address them as I see them. So when we talk about values, we want to look at people values. Is integrity a value? Is accountability? What ideals do you want in your people? And this is kind of what we bring into the values of the organization. Values should always be about work and commitment and about the environment itself. And you want to take a look and see, are you hiring people that share those values? When you're going through the interview process, are you asking those kind of questions? And you also want to take a look at the hiring practices that your founders would agree with. Are you hiring people the way that your founders would want you to hire people? The way leadership would want you to hire people? So here are two big questions. Who are your founders? Who is your leadership? How would you describe your leadership and diversity within the company? What do your leaders believe in? If your company is about hiring a diverse group of candidates into your organization, what does the leadership team look like? Are there any women on the team? Are there any minorities? Are there any veterans? This is just some questions to keep in mind. Another question to keep in mind is, what is your company's story? Every company has a story to tell. Do all of your employees know it? Does your recruiting team know it? I believe that what's really attractive to most candidates is they want to know how the company evolved. What were they doing before and what are they doing now? And what is the story behind their products? What is the story behind their people? And every recruiter, every person on leadership should know this story. So another thing that you want to take a look at is, what makes you different than your competitors? Why would someone want to join your organization? And if they joined your organization, where would they come from to be a cultural fit? So we always look to grab from competitors most of the time when we're doing any sort of recruiting. And we want to take a look at what their policies and benefits are, and how is it different from what you're offering candidates? And it's very easy to pull this up. You can pull up this data on Glassdoor. You can pull this up even on company websites. You can pull up a benefits package. If you do a Google advanced search, you can find some of the benefits packages available. And you can also talk to people who work at competitors, asking them, what is your benefits package like? What don't you like about it? And then try to compare it with what your organization is offering. It's extremely important to take a look at those factors when you're hiring people, because it goes into the compensation. So, for example, if I'm working at company B and I'm looking to move to company C, I would want to see more than just how much my salary would be. I would want to see what is my payment for health insurance, and what does the package look like overall. If I'm shelling out a lot more money for health insurance and the benefits aren't that great, it wouldn't make an ideal sense for me to move companies. So that's one thing to keep in mind. We also want to take a look at how do we perform when measuring diversity. So, are we reaching out to a diverse group of candidates? Who's viewing our job postings? How are we advertising our jobs? We want to take those metrics and data and kind of take a look and see how we're doing on that aspect compared to our competitors. So the third question kind of ties the two together. Are we attractive to our competitors, to our candidates from competitors? Do we offer similar benefits, similar work-life balance? How do we compare in projects? Do we offer similar projects, similar work? And stability. Are we more stable than our competitors? So these are just all things to kind of keep in mind when we want to see what makes us different than our competitors. So the next topic I'm going to talk about is company work style. So a lot of candidates ask this question: is it a suit and tie environment? Is it business casual? Is it completely casual? There are some work environments where people come to work in jeans and a T-shirt and a pair of tennis shoes, versus a banking environment where they'll wear a suit and tie. And then flexibility also comes into play. Are the people mostly working on site? Is there any possibility of remote? And this is a really good promotion factor. If you do offer a remote possibility, you can attract a lot more candidates that way. Basically, because people are trying to avoid a long commute, they need more flexible hours for a variety of different reasons, family reasons, and you can attract a lot of diverse candidates by offering a remote option. It's not an option for a lot of companies, but it's becoming more of an option. And even offering some work at home options can make your company a lot more attractive. So another thing that a lot of candidates have asked me is about the work environment itself. What do people usually do for lunch? Do they usually go out for lunch? Do they usually eat at their desk? Do they skip lunch? What are the work hours like? A lot of people say that 9 to 5 are the typical work hours, but most people in an exempt role work over 8 hours a day sometimes, and even take the work home with them. So these are just some things to factor in. What is the overall culture? So a fourth question rather is, how many company events do you have where people network? Does everyone within the organization know each other? And this is really important because you're able to understand the resources that the company has, and people are able to know each other if they need help with something, or if they're interested in doing something different within the organization, they know each other. And it creates a family-like environment when you have company events where people can network. Okay. I'm going to move on to the next slide. The next slide is vision for the future. So what are the long-term plans for the company? And a lot of candidates will ask this question in an interview. What is the growth? What do they anticipate the growth? And the main reason for asking this is they want to know where they can grow. So it's always important to know what that plan is and to be able to articulate that to candidates. Another factor that you want to look at is, are you hiring people that don't align with that vision of growth? Are you hiring people just to do a job and not thinking about the future of where they can grow, what their possibilities are? And this can be really dangerous because if you hire a candidate and you're not thinking about them in a growth capacity and they're a really great worker, you could lose out because you don't have a vision of growth for them. Another thing that you want to take a look at is, do your hiring plans reflect the current business growth and the future business growth? So you want to take a look at pipelining with your hiring managers, with the business, to see what you're going to need in the future. Recruiting is an ongoing thing. You recruit year-round, and you always want to have a pipeline. So without knowing what that pipeline is, you can't really reflect on that business growth. So I'm going to take a little bit of a pause and see if there's any questions. I don't see any questions as of yet. Okay. So another thing I want to talk about is defining what you need versus what you want. And that is when we're taking a look at every job description before we even recruit for the position, and talking to the hiring managers and letting them know what's possible and what's not possible. You know, you have to go over what the must-haves are and what the wants are compared to the budget in the marketplace. So you always want to do a market analysis to see that your salaries are competitive, the requests for skills match with what's available in the market. And if it doesn't match with what's available in the market, you need to have these honest conversations with hiring managers and leadership, letting them know that this is the data and this is what we're able to provide at this salary. And you have to set those expectations. So if you're not setting those expectations with your hiring managers, it's going to end up being a sourcing failure or a recruiting failure. So the idea behind it is to set this from the very, very beginning and really evaluate what your needs are. I'm going to talk about market mapping. And market mapping is basically just taking data points and getting to know the salaries of your competitors, getting to know where your candidates are currently working, know how many candidates are available for certain skills, know the job to candidate ratio. So the job to candidate ratio is how many candidates are available for one job. Knowing how many candidates are available for a certain skill, you can look in a lot of different locations and determine that. But really, pulling from your competitors is not always possible. So, having an idea of where candidates are in the market and where they're currently located is a good way for you to go out and reach them. I'm going to talk about using data as a tool and creating dashboards. So when you're looking for the data to present to hiring managers, there's a couple of different tools that I've used in the past to come up with the different data points. So LinkedIn will give you sort of an idea of how many people are on LinkedIn with a certain skill. It's not an entire market mapping because you will find that there are a lot of candidates that are not on LinkedIn, but they might be on GitHub, for instance, or they might be on Facebook or Twitter. So LinkedIn it'll give you some sort of idea, but it will not give you a complete picture. Wanted Analytics is a really awesome tool. It does a complete market mapping for you based on skill. And it'll tell you by location how many people are available and where they're available, and give you even an idea of where you can find these candidates, and even provide you with their social media links. So it's a really awesome tool if you can get a hold of it. It's really awesome. HireTroll, which is a tool that I've just started using in the last 4 months. It's brand new to the market. It's a Chrome extension. So if you're using a Chrome browser, there's a whole bunch of extensions you can download that will provide you data. This one in particular does data on a particular candidate based on skill. And it also helps you narrow down some Boolean strings to be able to find some candidates in a given location. And it searches a variety of different websites. So it's really useful. Indeed.com provides you several different things. It can provide you some sort of a market mapping. It can provide you salary information, and it can show you who's hiring for jobs similar to yours. Glassdoor is also a really good resource to get some information on benefits from candidates who are submitting that information. People that already work there will talk about what the health insurance is like, what the work environment is like. So it's a good idea to always cross-check this when you're interviewing a candidate to see where it is that they're coming from and what that environment might be like, so that you have sort of an idea of what it'll take to bring them in the door. Creating a dashboard it's simple. You can do that in Excel. You can do it in PowerPoint. You're presenting to your hiring manager, so every hiring manager is different. You want to present the data in a way that they're able to read it. And I just kind of gave a little bit of an example of what a dashboard actually looks like. And then when presenting the data, you want to make it simplified so that they're able to read it and understand it, and able to draw the same conclusions that you've drawn from that data. I'm going to take a brief pause for any questions, and I'll give about a minute for questions to come up. Okay, so it doesn't look like we have any questions at this time. I'm going to move over to the next slide. So the next thing I want to talk about is using feedback as a tool. And feedback is a really great place to pull data. You want to ask your hiring managers about the hiring process. Ask them what we can improve on as recruiters. Ask them about what was easy for them, what was hard for them. Did they have any technology issues in submitting feedback about a candidate? Did they feel that we took too long to get them the right person? Just a couple of questions to kind of figure out where we can improve on their standpoint. Then you want to take a look at your current candidates and ask them about their experience. Did they have a good interview experience? Did the recruiter communicate effectively with them? You want to ask them about their overall interview experience as well. So the next thing that we do want to ask about is asking our current employees about feedback. And this is after they've joined. You want to ask them about the onboarding process. Was it simple? Was there anything that they felt that was missing? Sometimes the onboarding process can make or break you. I've had employees tell me that they wouldn't recommend their current company because of the onboarding process. or just because of how things went when they were joining the company. So you want to take a look at that and see if there's anything that needs to be refined in the onboarding process. Excuse me. So the next thing I want to talk about is a personalized outreach. You want to avoid sending mass emails from the ATS system. This is one thing that a lot of agencies are doing. And what happens is candidates are getting emails that are not even relevant for the position. And you have candidates who open these emails and they say, well, why did I even get this email? Did anybody even review my resume or speak to me? And it's really bad because it just shows pure laziness. You want to research each and every candidate that you're interested in speaking to or interviewing. And the reason I say this is because there are candidates who don't want to be contacted. And I will give you an example. I was doing research on a candidate the other day for a software developer role. I went on his Twitter, his LinkedIn, and finally I got to his website. And at the very top of his website, he puts, "Recruiters, please do not contact me. I'm not interested in any positions at this time. If you do contact me about a position, I will shame you." While that seems very harsh, we have to respect other people. If they don't want to be contacted, they don't want to be contacted. And respect has to be mutual. So another great thing to do when you're emailing candidates is to send them is to pick up the phone first. And if they're not reachable over the phone, you want to send them an email. You leave a voicemail and then send them an email, actually. And then when you're talking to a passive candidate, you don't want to go straight into talking about a position when reaching out to them. You might want to talk about, if you've opened their portfolio, ask them about their portfolio. Let them know the reason that you are calling is a position, but you wanted to get to know them a little bit more on a personal level and on a preference level. And this actually builds the relationship because they'll feel more comfortable to refer someone if you're not hunting them down for a job. Another thing that is, it's okay to text a candidate once you've established a relationship, but don't text a candidate if you haven't established that relationship. In fact, in the U.S., we're not using texting as much as the UK. The UK has been using it for years for recruiting. So this is just something in the most recent year or two that I've seen recruiters do is text candidates. I want to talk about social media. There's a lot of social media out there, a lot of tools to use, a lot of websites. The one thing that you do want to do is make sure that all of your accounts are frequently updated. And there are some tools that will post for you on your behalf if you schedule them. There's a couple of tools that do that. You want to post content that sparks discussions. It's not always about putting a job out there. You want to talk to people about what's going on. If you're working on a particular technology in the cloud, for instance. Talk about like the latest trends and ask people to contribute and talk to you. A good way to get a referral for a position that you're working on is to ask advice about a technology or skill you're recruiting for. And then jump in and say, well, do you know someone who has that particular skill? You don't want to go out and just post jobs on social media, especially Twitter. Very few people will see your job if you're just throwing it out there. The one thing that a lot of corporate recruiters have told me in the past is that they're afraid to use Facebook. And I think that there's a really valuable resource that you're missing by using Facebook. Facebook is very fast in the terms of getting a response from a candidate. Candidates are not using LinkedIn as frequently. I mean, they don't log into LinkedIn as frequently as Facebook. Some people log into Facebook 10 times a day. There's a lot of groups on Facebook as well for specialized skills. So you can reach out to candidates directly, and they will respond to you rather quickly. Another thing that you might want to consider doing is minimizing on the LinkedIn emails. And the reason I say this is take some time to find the candidate's Twitter or email address, because you will get a faster response than a LinkedIn email. You don't even know if the candidate is checking their LinkedIn email. I'm going to talk about networking. Networking is really important. A lot of the major organizations are hosting technology networking events in their offices. And it's not always about finding candidates for jobs. It's about branding. So if you have a budget and, it takes a very minimal budget and, get the approvals, doing a local networking event at your local offices would be a great idea to connect with other people in the industry for best practices. Conferences are also a really great place to go. There's a lot of different conferences in every major city, depending on what you're recruiting for. And even there are conferences for HR and recruiting that are all over the country, and even some major conferences. I'm going to one in particular next week called SourceCon. Don't be afraid to learn from people outside of your organization. Good example of this is at a company that I was at a few years back. Competitors would actually meet for lunch and talk about their challenges and share ideas. They weren't really afraid to do that, and it's good to be open and to talk to each other. When you're doing that, also you're gathering some marketing intelligence from your peers. You're seeing if what you're feeling or what you're doing is similar to what they're doing, and then you're getting an idea for what the market feels like. Not just for you, but for everyone else, so that you can kind of compare and contrast and kind of plan ahead as to what it is that you want to do. So it's a really great idea to get market intelligence from peers. And talk about referrals. So encourage employees to refer other people that they know and trust. Reward referrals. Run office contests. Some offices and some companies rather offer a financial reward if a referral is hired. And referrals tend to be cheaper than any other indirect source. And another recurring trend is that candidates who are referred tend to be a better cultural fit. I'm going to talk about diversity events and job boards. So there are a lot of different diversity organizations that let employers post jobs for free. Quite a few of them out there. I attend 2 diversity events a year. I recommend that everyone attend 2 diversity events a year. There's a couple of major ones that I like to attend, but you have to take a look at your organizational goals and see which ones are a fit for you to join. You can even plan your own virtual events around diversity. And you want to advertise diversity on your company career page. And how you do that is you make sure that not everything looks the same. Not everyone and everything looks the same and bland. You kind of want to post pictures of people in different departments, people in different groups, and kind of get that idea from there. I'm going to talk about training your managers. It's important that you make sure that your managers are effectively interviewing candidates and that they understand the rules and the best practices behind it. You want to mentor your managers on best practices. It's important. You teach your managers about providing a good candidate experience. You want to give them a guideline on what to ask. A general rule is if the question has nothing to do with the job, it shouldn't be asked. It's inappropriate. Another thing that you would want to do is see if you can sit in on a couple of interviews if the manager is new, just to get a feel for how they interview and what their style is like. You also want to try to provide some coaching and some tips to help them with the interview process. You want to act as a partner with your managers and with your candidates, and this is one way to do it. So I want to end the presentation. This is my last slide with my contact information. Before I close out, I wanted to give a few minutes for questions. So I'm going to give about 2 minutes for any questions. All right. I'm going to end the presentation. My contact information is below. I wanted to thank everyone for attending the presentation, and I hope I was able to provide some information and some insights on company culture. Feel free to reach out to me anytime and to connect with me on LinkedIn. Thank you very much.